Hey guys, I'm here with Giovanni, and we've got slides. We have Luke Michik, who will be joining us shortly, and we might have Oliver Velez, hopefully joining us shortly. And I just wanted to show where this thing started. And we had this really interesting quote by Oliver Velez about these 8 reasons why Bitcoin is bad. Okay. Yeah, let me start sharing this. Okay, so I think I've got that. Let me share this. Okay, so these are the 8 reasons, according to Oliver Velez, why the power law is flawed. And I think these are interesting because Giovanni also came up with a similar type of list. And I think we should just to keep this thing really focused, I'm going to kind of read through the question. I'm going to ask Giovanni for his answer for the question. And he can obviously show slides and stuff. But just for that specific question, if Luke jumps on, I'm going to have Luke, be a counterpoint. I'm going to be more the moderator in this debate, this town hall. And great. So let's start. Okay. Luke may join. He may not. I don't know. Okay. The first question is this. He says, nonlinear growth. Okay. He says, Bitcoin's growth has been anything but linear. And I think he's looking at the fact that in log space, the power law is linear. He goes, Bitcoin's growth has been anything but linear. Its adoption price curve and price movement have been showing exponential trends due to network effects, technological advancements, and increasing institutional interests. The power law, being a linear model on a log-log scale, does not capture these exponential growth factors. Okay, Giovanni, how do you address this lack of exponentiality?
Okay. And we see my slides. People can see my slides.
I'm going to show them now. There we go.
All right. So we start with this, right? Luke doesn't really like it. They put a huge big cross on it. It is the best way to deal with a model, right? You don't like it, put a big cross on it. Okay, but let's move on. So let's answer the question, right? Okay. So, well, first of all, he mentioned it is early. It is not early because actually Bitcoin did almost a 10 million times growth. If you go all the way to the first transaction, it was in 2009. So it was 5,000 Bitcoin for $5. So if you calculate it, it's basically from that time to today, we're talking about 10 million times growth. It's enormous. It's the equivalent of going from a little speck of dust all the way to the Mount Everest mountain. Okay, so that is not really early. If you see something that goes from a speck of dust all the way to Mount Everest. And the idea is that according to the power law, if it is true, that is true, at least as a minimum, it's an historical fact about Bitcoin. It's undeniable. So if it is true and it continues to be true, and we will see why it's going to be true, there are very scientific reasons for this, then we're talking about another order of magnitude until it reaches 1 million. That is going to happen in about 10 years from now. And we're talking about maybe 20 years, 25 years before it reaches 20 millions. That for Bitcoin, if you're thinking in actually non-linear fashion, because in a moment I will make the big reveal that actually the power law is super non-linear. It's actually a native form of non-linearity.
Let me stop you. Your first point is Oliver says, hey, it's linear. It's linear in log terms.
But I'm addressing linear. I'm addressing linear. Another point that you made before that it was the fact that we are early, but it's connected with the non-linearity. It's not early. This is what I'm trying to say. It's only 1 order of magnitude or 2 for Bitcoin. We are actually in a very mature phase of Bitcoin evolution, if we think in non-linear terms. In fact, like you're saying, nonlinear growth. I think the guy that is part of the problem, right? I'm sorry if I'm going to mention these things. A lot of our analysts, unfortunately, don't know math. They want to talk about math, and it's like me talking about football. I don't even know the rules. I have no clue. Imagine I'm going to do a sportcast channel based on my ignorance of football. It will be stupid. But with math, it's okay. I don't understand it. The guy really, I'm sorry to be a little bit harsh, but it's really like me saying that football players, can go out of a field or do something crazy. No, like he said, if he's confused by the fact that he sees a straight line in a log chart,
Right.
there is nothing linear in the chart besides the fact that we use it as a tool to detect power laws. If you see,
how about the exponential? How about this?
So let me say that the power law is actually tied to the 6, that is super nonlinear. Like when people say the price went parabolic, well, a parabola is a square. A Bitcoin is 6, so that is super parabolic. It's the opposite. Power laws are an example of non-linearity. So there is nothing linear about a power law. It's a super non-linear phenomenon. So he doesn't know that, and he talks about something that he doesn't know. Now, let's go to the exponential part. Okay, he also claims, without a shred of evidence, that the adoption curve and the price movement are exponential. Okay, and it's so ridiculous because, again, he doesn't. How can he not have known what an exponential is and understand that we are talking about a power law, because it is not exponential? In fact, and then of course, he talks about adoption and all the kind of things like that actually we discuss in my Medium article. So the Medium article discuss all these things. We have a graph for adoption, how it goes. So he talks about a big article, right? A big post about the power law without doing proof of work. He didn't go and read my theory where I explain all in details how adoption action, how the interaction between price and adoption happens, all these things. So no proof of work.
We got a lot of points to go. So I'm going to summarize what you said. Is number one, Oliver is better at football than he is at math. Clearly,
right?
He doesn't understand math very well. He doesn't understand the difference between a power function and an exponential function, and they're very, very different in math. Okay.
Yes.
And number two, he hasn't studied kind of your work and other people's work. So that's the first part here. I'm going to
and let me show one second. Give me a second. So this is where he falls above exponential, because you should know, if you knew a little bit of math, that that is a chart that he puts a big, huge cross. Maybe one of the crosses is an exponential. I don't know. Maybe meant that, but let me tell everybody, like a little 1 minute lesson in math. If you have this chart where you see the rainbow curve, right? That curve, the famous curve that every Bitcoiner is familiar, you are looking at non-exponentiality in your face, because how an exponential will look in such a chart. The red line. I draw it for you. And a chart like this that is called a semi-log chart, that is log on the y-axis and linear on the x-axis. If there is an exponential, it looks like a straight line.
Perfectly correct. 100%.
That is what we use to detect exponentials. Do you see the price of Bitcoin that is in black being a straight line? No, then it's not an exponential. So if you knew a little bit of math, you will not say such things.
Yeah,
it's never
100% agree.
It will never be.
Time out, Jim. 100% agree. And that's a very good point, right? You can see just by looking at the semi-log graph that it clearly is not an exponential. And I would like to say one last thing. If you look at the original stock to flow model, right, it would have predicted right now that we were at 600,000 Bitcoin. So because
S2F is an exponential. Because Fred, let me ask you, how do you get an exponential? What is the process to create an exponential? I can answer very quickly. It's anytime you have something that doubles or
Mhm.
multiplies itself at very specific rates. And if you go back to SOF, what SOF say? 10 pair every 4 years. That is the definition of an exponential. You see an exponential? No, SOF doesn't work because otherwise it will be already clear that we are on an exponential path. We are not. Math.
Yeah, and I
It's
would
just
just like to
math.
say, listen, I think there's some very smart people out there, right? Very smart people I admire a lot who've contributed a lot to Bitcoin. And I'm not going to name names, but they say, you know, I prefer the exponential, right? I mean, I prefer the stock to flow. Now, I honestly think if they had done a little bit more math and they'd done a little bit more rigorous analysis, they would not say this because it's
Absolutely.
not, it's actually just incorrect. Okay, now for the counter argument, I'm going to bring in Luke, my man. Why? What do you have to say against that? How are you going to dispute that? The Earth is flat.
Firstly, I'm thrilled to be here, gentlemen. Thank you so much for having me. One of my biggest doubts surrounding the Bitcoin power law is I actually do agree with Oliver in the fact that I believe we are very early in Bitcoin's adoption. 0.1% of the world has put significant wealth into Bitcoin. What happens when the other 99.9% of the world want to put a significant wealth into Bitcoin? I actually feel like volatility is going to increase from here. And I actually feel like we're very, very early in Bitcoin's adoption. And I'm just concerned that the past 15 years of data that the power law model uses is being extrapolated into the future. I mean, I think so that's probably my
This
biggest
is
concern.
what prediction is about, right? What do you think? If I had a time machine, I will no need to make any predictions. So I cannot go to the future with a time machine and tell you what the future data looks like. Any type of prediction, even sending people to Mars or a probe to Mars, is based on past, right? Always. So it's please let's never say any more that you made prediction based on the past. Should I use the future data? It's ridiculous, right? Anyway, look, this is first of all, it's not early because you need to think what Bitcoin is teaching us. By the way, this is Bitcoin. Look at this graph. This is Bitcoin. You have adoption at the top. Adoption is not an S curve. It's a power law. Look at the first graph on top. That is adoption. That is addresses. Now you can say, I don't believe that addresses are adoption. Well, it's all what we have, first of all, from the on-chain. And it's anyway a measure of activity on the network. Because how could I get the combination between addresses and how addresses act on price when combined, they give me the power law. The exponent of the power law is exactly the combination between these two things within 1%. So basically, we have explained 99% of the price of Bitcoin by combining activity on the network, that is the first chart, and how activity affects price. It's two power laws and two network properties. So first of all, the fact that Oliver says I'm not considering network. He didn't read my work. It's all based. See, we are beyond being a model. It's a theory. It's a full theory that says Bitcoin is a network. There are network properties, and all these properties are power laws. In fact, network properties usually show as power laws, not as exponential. And these two guys together give me Bitcoin price. So it's not early because,
not early. So one of the ways I would say we're not early, Luke, is this. In terms of time, sure, we're 15 years out, and hopefully we're going to be on Bitcoin for the next 100 years, right? So, in that percentage, we're only 15% of the way there in terms of time, right? And in terms of adoption, we're probably 1% of the way there. I agree. But in terms of total price, right, we're probably maybe 1% of the way there too, right? So, I think we all believe, Bitcoin can't go infinite, right? It can, in terms of it can only go infinite if the dollar completely collapses, right? There's a certain amount of actual value of things in the world, and that's how Hal Finney came up with his $10 million per Bitcoin prediction, in 2040 when he did that, right? So I think if you look in terms of price or adoption, we're roughly at 1%, right? Right. But in terms of orders of magnitude, as Giovanni said, we've already gone 7 orders of magnitude, and we're going to go another 2. right? So on a log space, right? In a logarithmic time, we've only got 2 more orders of magnitude left in price, right?
Yeah.
And in adoption. So we've done 7, we have 2 more left, right? That's
Correct.
kind of a better way to think of it.
And let me make an observation.
Yeah.
When, for example, we have something as humans that can give us a point of reference, that is our sensitivity to light. Sensitivity to light works in a log fashion. So if I am inside a room and I go outside, it looks maybe 3 times brighter to me or 4 times brighter. Well, that 3 is actually 1,000. 4, it's 10,000 because it's logarithmic. Okay, this is how evolution created us, because it gave us the possibility to be sensitive to a wide range of luminosity, of brightness. Bitcoin works in the same way in terms of time. For Bitcoin, 15 years, it's nothing, because basically it's thinking or is acting or is behaving in a log fashion. It's only 1 order of magnitude. Okay, it's almost like, imagine there is a process that lasts 10 years and we are year 8. If we go all the way to 10 million, so we are year 9 if we are going to 1 million. So the story, how I see it, not from my feelings, because Luca, you're a bright guy. I love you. You know, you gave me a wonderful interview. I'm proud of you being young and active in the Bitcoin world. But it's not about feelings. You say, I feel. Well, the difference with what I do is I look at the data. The data tell us the adoption is a power law. It means, for example, this, I'm telling you what it means. You know what it means? In 15 years, we will have only 8 times more people. If this power law continues, and I will tell you in a moment if I have a chance to, that there is one core principle about power law that is almost synonymous with power law, that is scale invariance. There is a reason why Bitcoin did the same thing for several orders of magnitude, because these systems don't change in terms of scale. It continued to do that for seven order of magnitude. It will continue to do that for another order of magnitude, or even 2. That even is true. Like the DNA of Bitcoin being scale invariant.
Let's address now Oliver's second point, which is market dynamics. I'm going to read the thing. Market dynamics. Bitcoin is highly dynamic and is influenced by a myriad of factors such as regulatory changes, technological breakthroughs, and macroeconomic trends. The power law model, which relies on historical data, does not account for these dynamics, which could propel its value far beyond its predictions. Now, I'm going to say my response to this, because everybody says, hey, Fred, you're not modeling in, this and that and that stuff, because that's the whole thing. That's the simplicity of this model is its power, right? There is no model for regulation in this power law, right? There's nothing in this thing for regulatory changes or tech or AI or other things, right? It's just a simple mathematical relationship. That's all it is. Now I'll let it over to Giovanni. How would you deal with this notion of
can you switch
dynamics?
on my slide? Can you
yes, go. Yeah, see your slide 1 second. Yep.
Okay. So exactly. So that is the beauty of it. And when you have data, you go to data. Okay. You don't use your intuition. Yeah, you can use intuition after you look at the data. You go back and forth. You look at the data. You try to understand the data. Data comes first, and then you try to use your intuition to understand what is going on. So the beauty of what we are seeing here, this beautiful straight line, like that is not a straight line, is actually an hockey stick, almost indistinguishable with an exponential, by the way, by the human eye. It's power of a 6. It looks like a straight line. It means that it doesn't care. So one of the things that we say all the time about Bitcoin, Bitcoin doesn't care. So we want it both way, right? In one end, it doesn't care. So if China bans it, for example, Bitcoin doesn't care. We had COVID. Let's see where COVID is actually, here I'm showing the red part is our prediction, because people don't realize, by the way, that we have 5 years of out of sample data. Maybe Fred, you can explain what I mean by out of sample. But you see that deep just in the red area, okay, that is the new data that we had since the first time that we ever published this model. That dip that you see there in the red area, it's COVID. Look what happened with COVID. We had COVID, the price went all the way down. For oil, what happened with oil? It went negative during COVID. That's how bad it was. Look what happened with Bitcoin. It bounced from that black line that is the bottom of a power law. That is probably the real power law. So it's resilient. It doesn't care. This is the beauty of a power law. It's a resilient system because power law, by the way, are associated with resilience, adaptability, all beautiful characteristics. This is why a power law is not another model. It's a very spatial curve. It's almost a magical curve. It has a lot of beautiful property. We should love it. Bitcoin is a power law. Everybody should be in love with that because it's basically like the only budget of functions. It doesn't care. So the entire idea of what we are seeing here, that notwithstanding these huge, big changes, okay, when we have bubbles, look what happens during the bubbles. Market dynamic, it goes up, it gets sold by somebody, long-term holders, by the way. And what happened to the price? Look what happened to the price. It goes back to that straight line. It's almost like actually the bubble didn't exist. The price goes up, it comes back, and it goes there. It knows where to go. Something magical is happening there, right? Look at the chart. Something weird. As a scientist, if you are a scientist, you look at the chart and say, what the heck? This is how a scientist reacts. What is going on? I need to understand it. I don't going to put a huge big X. I don't want to understand it. Big X. Understand it. That is Bitcoin talking to you, by the way. And Bitcoin is telling you, I don't care. I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to grow in this way because this is the best way. This is the path of least resistance. By the way, power laws come up in nature all the time for one reason. They have a way of minimizing energy or optimizing something. Bitcoin found a way of optimizing its growth. So why do you argue with Bitcoin? You are arguing not with me. It's not my model. It's Bitcoin. It's
Luke, why are you arguing with Bitcoin?
I'm sorry, Bitcoin. I love you, Bitcoin.
Truly, look at these. Look at these. It's
You're
what
arguing
Bitcoin
with
is doing.
Bitcoin.
It's not Giovanni. It's a straight line. It's not a complicated model. I'm not adding something like S2F. S2F is like 2 steps, maybe even 3. And so you can argue. Maybe you did a mistake. Maybe make some crazy assumption. There's no assumptions there. It's a straight line in a log graph. Look at your eyes. There is not really modeling. I could even avoid to put a straight line in the middle. Just look your eyes. How come the price goes back to that line? Look at this. Look, 3 bubbles. It goes crazy, does all kinds of crazy things. In fact, during the bubble, it's kind of exponential. Then it comes back. But it's almost like nothing happened because it knows where to come back. That is an incredible, magical thing. Over 15 years, over 7 orders of magnitude. That is Bitcoin.
Okay, Luke,
Bitcoin. So it doesn't care. That is the answer.
Yeah.
Dynamics, Bitcoin doesn't care.
Just for the record as well, Giovanni, I do think the power law theory has way more validity than the stock to flow model. I very early thought the stock to flow model was BS, but I've probably spent a lot more time looking into the power law theory, and I think it is more accurate than stock to flow. Just wanted to put that out there. I'm not just a permanent models hater. I don't hate all models, but I certainly do still have some concerns for the power law theory on this point about it not being able to factor in a changed environment in the future. So we've had a certain
No, it does. It's called scaling variance and telling you that it will not give a shit. It will not give a shit because, in fact, one more thing. Look at this. Everything that happens in Bitcoin happens for a reason. It's basically a feedback loop. Where was Saylor, for example, 6 years ago? He was shitting on Bitcoin. Why? Because Saylor was not ready for Bitcoin, and Bitcoin was not ready for Saylor. This is when you get a scaling variance system. Everything that happens to the system happens for a reason. Bitcoins, at a certain point, attracted ETFs. What the ETFs, BlackRock people, the CEO of ETF was saying about Bitcoin 7 years ago, he was shitting on Bitcoin. Why they came now? Because it was the right time. Bitcoin had a strength, it was large enough in terms of cap, so it attracted the ETFs. So it's the other way around. It's Bitcoin that is driving the dynamics.
Let's
It's
keep on
Bitcoin
going.
that is
I
selling
gotta keep
when
you on.
people-
It's gonna take too
You
long.
understand how it works? How do you understand? Because
one
this is
second,
what you arrive. This is the logic that you arrive to once you understand scale invariance. Scale invariant means this system is growing at the right time with the right proportion. Because another way for another name for scale invariance is everything grows in proportion. This is why I have this little triangle there. You see, I have a triangle. Imagine that you're making the triangle bigger. You scale up everything in proportion. Why do you think Bitcoin is taking longer and longer time? Because to go to the next step, it needs more time. This is what Bitcoin found out. This is a very dynamical system. Power laws are super dynamics. It's just that people don't realize. Let me explain this very important concept. It's all a question of feedback loop. Every time something happens, Bitcoin responds. And how it responds? By being adaptive.
Okay.
And that is the result of this being adaptive. So the idea that it doesn't respond to future events is actually already there. The answer is already there. It did respond to all the events that happened to Bitcoin, because one of the things that people don't realize, that I have been in this thing in 12 years, okay, for 12 years. I know, I was there. I remember the day that I was under the shower in 2017, and I said, I wanted to sell some of my assets because I thought we were very close. I didn't know yet the entire picture. And I was repeating to myself, oh, there are institutions, because you don't think that in 2017 they were institutions. They were not as big as the ETF, because everything in proportion. But I was under the shower and they say, no, there are institutions. This time is different. It's not like in 2013 when I was also there. Right now there are institutions. No, that is linear thinking. There are institutions proportionally to any time of Bitcoin. So
there was a lot of changes. There's been a lot of changes to Bitcoin over the life of Bitcoin, right? And even with, Mt. Gox, that was a big change, right? That we had Mt. Gox, right? We had a way to trade. Now let's go back to. I want to go back to the question.
And I want to ask Luke. Do you understand this idea? What I'm trying to say, that everything that happens to Bitcoin happens for a reason, and Bitcoin adapts to it. And this is the result of adapting. Of course, if something else happens in the future, it will do exactly the same thing. It will respond in this way, in this scale invariant way. There is a reason why it's scale invariant, because invariant means it doesn't change. And why it doesn't change? Because it adapts to the changes. And this is the result. What you're seeing, this power law is there because it is the result of Bitcoin adapting to all the things that happen: bans, COVID, institution coming, because institutions.
So Luke, Giovanni's
it's
point
a very powerful
there's been a lot of
concept.
change.
This is the essence.
It's all reflected in the price of Bitcoin.
Okay, well, I think that I feel like we're going to see a different regime in the next few years. And my biggest question, I don't fully understand scale and variance, so I'm just going to put that out there as the disclosure. But what I look at is the power law in Argentina, in Argentinian pesos, which is already broken down.
We're going to get to that one. We're going to get to that one.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
let's keep on going. I just want to keep the thing focused. I think number 3, we're all three of us going to agree on, because I think it's sort of a Bitcoin not being used for money, which I don't know why he says this, but he goes, Bitcoin's first use is money, but is likely to evolve well beyond this. The internet's first use case was email. Building a linear mathematical at the time would have proved ridiculous. In my view, Bitcoin's future use case will extend far beyond our wildest dreams, as it did with the internet. The power law can't factor in these potential impacts of other future use cases. So he's saying, hey, right now it's a form of money, store of value, but it may evolve into, I don't know, AI storage or something like that. I don't know. It's possible, right? That's what he's sort of saying. Giovanni, any thoughts on this? Why?
You can show my slides.
Okay,
Point number 3. So, okay, this is a very weak point. I don't know if we need to spend a lot of time. We had many cases. People were using it actually sometime early on more like an exchange, because people were buying pizzas with it. We went through that phase anyway. We were using it more as money than we're using it now. Right now, actually, we are kind of settling on store of value until hyper-Bitcoinization. When that happens, then this story ends, because the moment that we have hyper-Bitcoinization, it's like we are describing the growth of a child that then became an adult. It becomes an adult, and then there is no more power law. We have 1-to-1, $1, 1 Bitcoin, or maybe we don't even know. We don't use the dollar anymore.
Hopefully, it's not $1, 1 Bitcoin.
Well, in the sense that the dollar will have to catch up with Bitcoin. It will be worth an enormous amount of money. But that is the entire idea. It's peg, or 1 Bitcoin, 1 million Bitcoin, or whatever. It's just zeros. You can always change with zeros. It's just that at that point it will be a dollar that is pegged to Bitcoin. That is what we want. But this story of a power law is the story to how we go there. So once we arrive there, it's another phase. I agree on that. But that is when we have upper Bitcoinization. Then, of course, there is no more power.
Okay, let me ask you this, Giovanni.
It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. But do you think there's anything, to Oliver's point, there's significant use cases beyond money?
Beyond money, so store of value. And so, okay, that's what? What does it say?
Like data or something. He says specifically the first use case is money.
Okay, but then, we don't have any evidence of how this is affecting the price. Actually,
we have
shows me a graph saying, okay, because of this happened, then look what that happened, then we go.
The only thing I would say, it doesn't, I personally think Bitcoin will have other uses, including storage of data. I do believe that, but I don't think it's a primary use, right?
Yeah.
I do think people are going to use Bitcoin to store everything from pharmacy. For example, I went to a Bitcoin meetup that was hosted by the Orange Pill app. If anybody is used to the Orange Pill app, the founder was in LA, and
he's an Italian guy. I know him.
Yeah, he's an Italian guy. So I met with him, and there was a professor of statistics there from Ohio State University, right? So he was there when Chris Pan was doing his Bitcoin thing, and he said, look, I think I could see a lot of use case for storing things like clinical trial data and so on. And I know you've been dealing with stuff like this, so you two should talk, Giovanni. But
I would love to.
He definitely sort of said, he definitely sort of saw the use of storing some data on Bitcoin purely for scientific or statistical use to be a very good use case. And I was pretty impressed. But I think we can all three of us agree that money is where Bitcoin is. Now, whether it's money that I'm just saving or money that I'm using and kind of transacting, we're not at the point today, other than maybe Luke in El Salvador, where you can just spend your money. Are you in El Salvador or in Argentina right now?
I'm in Argentina paying for massages in Bitcoin.
Oh, wow. Jesus. Okay. Okay. So first of all, how is Argentina? I saw your pictures with the beef. It looks pretty good. Like very cheap beef.
Yeah. Cheap beef, cheapest steak in the world, best tasting steak in the world, and lots of Bitcoin adoption, which is also amazing to see. And it's actually a lot safer than most people think it might be when they hear that they're suffering from, 100%, 200% inflation. It's actually relatively safe here considering all of that. So love the country of Argentina.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And what do you think in terms of the use of Bitcoin other than money? Just to kind of close Oliver's point number 3.
Yeah, so I agree with you guys on this. I think Bitcoin as money is the main use case.
Okay, cool. Let's go to the next point here on Oliver's thing, and then we will kind of move on. So number 4 is global economic shifts. As global economies face challenges like inflation and currency devaluation, kind of like where Luke is right now, Bitcoin will be increasingly viewed as a store of value and a hedge against economic uncertainty. This shift in perception will likely lead to a surge in demand that outpaces the power law's linear projections. I have a big problem with the word linear projections here, but Giovanni, what do you think? I'm going to go over to your
and everybody can see my slides. I need actually, now because I want to give up at a certain point another attempt to explain scaling variance to Luke. But right now, Luke, you should explain it to me, because that is the thing that I really need to understand because it's almost like a riddle to me. You guys wanted, I don't know if you are what I call an expo bro, okay? But let's come up with this name for all the people that desire some kind of exponential growth for Bitcoin. But at a certain point, I will tell you, it's so super selfish because exponential are bad. But let's focus on this, right? How could you have two things like hyper-Bitcoinization and, hyperinflation, and at the same time, Bitcoin keeping its value? It's like desiring two things that are opposite at the same time. It cannot happen. Or Bitcoin is an hedge against inflation, and so it means that it grows so fast, and I have graphs to show that it grows so fast that inflation, it's a rounding error. It's nothing. That is what we want about Bitcoin, that its growth is so fast relatively to inflation that it's just a rounding error. Inflation is a rounding error. If it is not a rounding error because it actually pushes the price up and it dominates over the behavior of Bitcoin relatively to that currency that right now it's the US dollar because it's the currency that is the standard in the world, how is possible? You are becoming a millionaire relatively to a shitty currency. I don't get it. I really don't get it. To me, it's almost like hyper wishful thinkingization. You have some kind of wishful thinking, and you don't use critical thinking.
So Luke, why do you want to turn us, Luke? Why do you want to turn us into Weimar Germany? Well, what's wrong with you? You are trying to argue that we should all turn into Weimar Germany. What is wrong with you, Luke?
Well, you know what's funny on that point? I actually have a controversial opinion. Because I've, for a long time, since 2021, I've thought that Bitcoin's going to hit tens of millions of dollars per coin faster than most people think. But we don't actually need hyperinflation to get that. So I think the Power Law model breaks without Weimar Germany hyperinflation.
Okay, based on wishful thinking, but
no, they don't
have one single chart to show me that is a because I stick with on-chain data. These are all what I stick. I don't think, I don't or wishful thinking. I don't come up with some scenarios that are in my head. I look at the data. But again, do you agree with me that the two things cannot go together? You cannot have crazy scenarios where the dollar loses value. It's a nice meme when people say the dollar goes to zero.
Let's close.
Because if it went to zero, you don't get infinity. You get zero because how do you buy bread? We don't have infrastructure. We don't have, even during Weimar's Republic, please go and study the historical case, okay? People had gold. They could not buy bread with gold. Bakers didn't say, hey, bring me some gold so I can give you bread. They couldn't because you could really not bring it around, move it. You need the infrastructure. People, otherwise it would not have been a problem. Okay, let's switch to gold. Everybody could have switched to gold. It's ridiculous.
Luke, do you have any data with you to support your claim of $10 million per Bitcoin faster than anybody expects?
I mean, yeah, if you have a look at the maths and you run an assumption, I think Bitcoin can comfortably capture 10% of the $900 trillion of assets in the world today. That's a $90 trillion market cap. If you've got $90 trillion that wants to flow into Bitcoin, assuming a very conservative 3 to 4x multiplier effect, you can get Bitcoin in tens of millions of dollars per coin very, very quickly. And I think the fact that...
Where do you get the very, very quickly part?
Yeah.
So I believe that Bitcoin is a technology. Technologies get adopted exponentially. Even earlier in our chat, Fred, you said Bitcoin adoption is about 1%. I agree. I think Bitcoin adoption is somewhere around, depending upon how you want to measure adoption, it's less than 5%. So if we all agree that it's 1% or 5% or 0.1%, and we all agree Bitcoin's a technology that will be adopted exponentially, then we have to agree that the past rate of adoption that we've seen in the first 15 years is slower and will be slower than what we see in the next 15 years.
So can we jump? In fact, it's actually number 8. So maybe we can address it now because he's talking about this. Can you switch on my slide? Do you mind?
Let's keep it to number 8.
No, I did the math. He says that he did the math. I did the math. Can we switch it, please? Okay, let's show you the math. He say Luke says he did the math. I did the math, and I can show you the math. He says he did, and I'm sorry, Luke. Okay, with math is math. It's like
that's okay.
If we were
Hold on one second.
Science is different from any other debate. You can say, I feel, I like. The beauty of math is that actually you can show the math and then there is no doubt. So let's look at the math. I did the math. If you can show me that. Okay, this is what I say. You say a multiplier of what? 3. You know what? I use a multiplier of 10. Let's even use a multiplier of 20. Okay, let's any multiplier that you want. Here it is, 22 million Bitcoins. Multiply by 1,000,000. Bitcoin becomes 1,000,000. I divide it by 10, that is my multiplier. I divide by the number of days in 10 years. You say less, so this number will be even crazier, okay? I did it 10 years because according to the Power Law, it takes 10 years to go to 1,000,000. You know what you get? 600 million per day. 600 million per day, math. Okay, if it was a multiplier of 3, and if it was 5 years, this number will become billions per day. Do you see? Math. The ETFs, what is the conclusion of this? The ETF flow, it's barely what we need to actually go through the power law prediction. In other words, to continue to do what the power law says we will do, you need this kind of flow. Where do you get this kind of flow?
Well,
he's larger. What is it? What is the ETF right now? What are the ETFs right now? What are the flow? Is close to this? No.
It's real. I mean, what's the average? $200 to $300 million a day.
So we're talking about 3 times with a multiplier of 10 in 10 years. So you are basically saying the ETFs are exactly, that is what I was telling you, scale invariance. Everything is proportional. The ETFs are exactly what we need to go where we need to go according to the power law. Math.
Great.
I did the math.
I think
you agree with this math, Fred?
Yes. Or no? My name is Fred Krueger, and I agree with the math. Okay.
My name is Luke Mikic, and I haven't verified the math. My math is slightly different. I just assume that we're going to see 100.
Show your math, then we can compare it.
Show me the
equation. Show me the equation.
His math's a little bit more back of the envelope. Okay, let's just go back. I want to go back to the Oscar points because we're going to get through it and then we can have a little bit of free-form discussion. But okay, so we now go to where have we talked about? Adoption as legal tender. Okay, adoption as legal tender. Okay, with countries like El Salvador endorsing legal tender, there's a possibility that many nations will follow suit. This level of adoption could lead to demand that no model can predict, pushing Bitcoin's value higher than the power law estimates. Okay, Giovanni, how close are we to Italy adopting Bitcoin as legal tender?
Very far away. So, and in fact, if you don't mind to switch to my slide, so that is a point, right? I mean, El Salvador is a small little nation. Okay, it's wonderful, it's beautiful, it's amazing. We should praise El Salvador, but it's a little tiny nation. And there is no other evidence anywhere that we are close to that. That is what I'm saying. We are going there. That is the beauty of the power law, by the way, guys. The power law says it's an unstoppable train. We are going there. Power laws, scale invariant. You want to pray for scale invariant to continue because it's a guarantee. It's almost a guarantee. It's as close as you get in guaranteeing something in science when you have something scale invariant.
Look, I think we're all in agreement that we're going there. I think all three of us think we're going there. The only
but the power law, it's a scientific way of saying we are going there, not wishful thinking. It's really science. And the idea is also that we know how we are going to go there. So we can make prediction, we can prepare, we can do all kinds of interesting things. The scenario that we are seeing here is that it will take about 20 years before we reach, let's say, 5 million, 10 million, 25 years. And when we arrive there, it will be the right time for the next step in this proportional growth. And you know what is the next step when we reach there? Hyper-Bitcoinization. Then finally, the US will adopt it. And then the story ends. Happy ending. Fantastical, beautiful ending. We have the Bitcoin standard. It will happen in 25 years. But Bitcoin told us how it's going to do that. It's going to do it with a power law.
Yeah.
Not faster because
let's go to
what Bitcoin wants.
1.6 is very simple. Network effects. The value of Bitcoin is driven by network effects, where the value increases as more people accept it. the power law doesn't adequately address the exponential increase in value. There's like a lot of lies in the single sentence here.
Yeah.
Or exponential increase in value that the network effects cause. This alone surprises me to no end that intelligent men such as Giovanni and Fred have adopted it as law. Okay, well, the word law
on my slide, please, because it's going to be a beautiful punchline.
Okay, network effects are a mantra in the Bitcoin space.
Yeah,
Thank
switch
you
please
for
on my
that,
slide.
Oliver. Here we go.
All right, so the guy didn't read my article because please, guys, go and read my article, my Medium article. It's all about network effect. I'm claiming that is the punchline of the article. It says, hey, I see all these network effects. And in fact, too, and differently from Oliver, that didn't study network, I studied network, is one of my specialties. And I pointed to two very precise network properties. One is the spread like a virus of a adoption, that is the cube of time. That is exactly what you see, for example, in many examples in social network. You see this cubic expansion of information, network property. Guess what? Power law. And the other fundamental power law, that is the Metcalfe law, because Metcalfe law is a power law. So there are two power laws, they combine together to give to a third one. And look at this slide. This is why I say a punchline. I put, do just everybody right now go and do power law network. It's full because actually power laws and networks go together. Look at how many references here. Power laws, networks and power laws go together. So the guy mentioned exponential, but we don't see any evidence of it. Adoption is not an exponential, it's a power law. Metcalfe is a power law. Networks show power law property. So he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Metcalfe is a power of two. It's a power law.
Yeah,
right?
It's a power law. And power laws come up everywhere in social networks. Look at all these references. And this is just a small little sample.
So this is just Oliver's getting a little too carried away. Luke, what do you have to say about this network effect slide here?
Yeah, so I think adoption is going to increase into the future because Bitcoin has network effects, and I feel like we're very, very early in the adoption.
But the network effects are power laws.
Look, okay, Giovanni.
Here, this is not exponential in network effects.
Okay, so I think Bitcoin adoption today, 1%, 5%, it's very low. I think it's going to increase dramatically in the next 15 years and be much higher than it was in the past 15 years. I would love to know
based on which evidence? Based on which evidence?
The adoption of every single technology in human history.
Okay, but it doesn't follow. That is not Bitcoin. In fact, I have that slide. You're talking about the S-curve. We have no evidence of it.
Okay, why?
It's actually the contrary. And in fact, don't use the word network effect because network effect don't follow the S-curve. They follow power laws. There are papers. I read the papers. I studied the paper. When I saw that Bitcoin follows, a power law in adoption, I got shocked because I say, how is possible? One of my first articles ever in 2014 was using the S-curve. I did it before everybody else. There is a Reddit post in 2014 where I used the logistic model, that is the S-curve, to try to predict Bitcoin price. I did it. It didn't work. I was banging my head against the wall because I was using the wrong math.
By the way, I also tried the logistic. It does not work, which is one of the reasons why the Y-bowl distribution is a better distribution.
Because it's a kind of power law that tapers off, and it's still a logistic model, but assumes power law growth.
Got to go to the next question, the next point, which is future. This is a good one for everybody. I know there's going to be a lot of debate here. Oliver thinks we're underestimating future halvings. He says, I believe the halvings are being underestimated. In fact, I believe their effect will only grow in the future, not decrease, as Fred has been saying. If I'm right, which he isn't, the power law does not fully account for the effect of these halving events on Bitcoin's price. Okay, Giovanni, the effect of halvings are being underestimated. What do you?
Can you switch on my slide?
Oh yeah, 1 second. Yeah, here we go.
Data. Data, guys. Okay, two things. First of all, remember what I just showed before. The halvings push the price up, they have bubbles, and then the price goes back to the power law. It's like the halving don't even happen. Okay, so that is my first answer, and I already show you data. Second, it's not true. I don't know. I don't understand what he's talking about, because everybody knows. Look at this graph on the left, on the right. The graph on the right with the red line is the deviations from the power law. You can see how the bubbles are becoming smaller and smaller with time. In fact, you know what? Different from other people, I calculated, I have a graph. That is the graph. The graph is an exponential. There is one thing that is exponential, guys. It's how fast the bubbles are going down. That is exponential.
Okay, Luke, what do you think? Are halvings going to make more importance as we go in the future, or less?
They're
Should
gonna.
we really think 2028 is going to be just this amazing pop? What do you think?
Yeah, so I, again, got a very controversial opinion on this one. I actually coined a term called the Bitcoin double halving. And that's because, yes, I've done a video on this. I've done multiple videos on it. But I actually think that everybody's looking at the halvings wrong. So they're saying, look, the halvings are going to matter less and less into the future, because look at how small that block reward is getting cut every 4 years. We agree it's getting halved, but everybody's looking at that block reward and they're comparing it against the circulating supply of Bitcoin. Now, my argument is this is wrong. What you should be looking at is the block reward cut against the highly liquid supply of Bitcoin, or the number of Bitcoin on exchanges, because we all know that price is set at the margin. So I actually believe that halvings in the future, as Bitcoin becomes more and more scarce, and as coins continue to leave the exchanges like they have left the exchanges over the past 4.5 years, I actually expect the halvings to matter more and more, because we're not going to have many Bitcoin on exchanges in only 2 to 3 years'
Look,
time.
have you ever met a Jehovah's Witness?
They used to knock on my door every day in Australia.
Okay, you know what it's like? I feel like with you, it's a little bit like arguing with a Jehovah's Witness. They're
Where am I
absolutely
wrong?
they were 100% convinced that there's, a certain amount of people who are going to get their tickets into heaven, and you better jump on board, because anyways, let's go. I want to keep on moving, because we have to go to the next point here.
The halving don't count, because the price goes back to that state.
Okay, the last point, which is institutional adoption. And the first 15 years of Bitcoin's life had practically zero institutional adoption. The increasing interest and investment from institutional investors can lead to significant price movements. Okay. The power law, which is based on the past, obviously, and is devoid of this, underestimates the influx of capital from these large-scale investors. Now, how dare you underestimate the influx of capital from large-scale investors, Giovanni? What do you have to say for them?
Okay, switch again to that slide that I already showed, but let's watch it one more time. Differently from people that have feelings, opinion, they wave their hands, I have this idea, and then they don't show any math, any graph, they don't know how to download data from their own chain, they've never done one single graph about Bitcoin, they use other people's graphs, and then they put a huge big X. So differently from all of these, I actually every single day spends hours and hours and hours for 12 years looking at the data. And I just gave you a back of the envelope calculation that I would like anybody to challenge it, tell me why it's wrong, that shows you that no, first of all, we have already institution. We were institution. Where were you? I was there. We were institution coming in little by little, smaller institution. Now we have big ones. But even the big ones, look at this. It's exactly what I'm saying. You see, when I'm telling you that everything is proportional, it's not just waving my hands. I did the calculation.
Okay.
The ETFs are proportional to what we need to do exactly what Bitcoin is still doing.
Okay. Luke needs to speak a little bit. There's some complaints in the chat that let Luke speak for the love of God. So I'm going to let Luke speak a little bit.
Let's him speak. Let's also show some math. Where is the math?
I got the math. I mean, if you have a look at the amount of Bitcoin on exchanges over the past 4 years, we've seen over 1 million coins leave exchanges over the past 4 years. My math is just saying, hey, look.
Show
I
me
think
the
we're in a-
data. Show me the data. Show me that is true. And how
Google.
and that affects the price. Show me a graph that shows how that affects the price.
It
Show me.
doesn't affect the price in the short
It
term.
doesn't
because I
affect the
believe-
price, so it means it has no value. So
Really?
show me a graph, because you know why I'm asking you that?
Okay.
Because I want to know Bitcoin. I love Bitcoin. I don't give a shit about the power law. If tomorrow somebody show me that the real behavior of Bitcoin, it's some weird mathematics that I didn't understand, I love it. I want to understand Bitcoin. This is how science works. I adore Bitcoin. I want to understand Bitcoin. Show me, not because I'm challenging you, because I want to learn. Please teach me, show me a relationship between coins living and price. Then I will agree. Fantastic. I learned something new about Bitcoin. Show me that graph.
Yeah, so there is no data saying that coins leaving exchanges impacts the Bitcoin
So why
price.
you're
But
talking
what
about
I'm
it?
saying is
Why
that
you're talking
Bitcoin is a
about
very complex system, and when the amount of Bitcoin leaving the exchanges hits zero, which it is
Not a
scheduled
complex
to
system.
do
It's a
in
power law.
2028, I don't know what the price is going to do. And I think all of these models that project, what has happened in the past 15 years in an environment of ample supply on exchanges, I don't think they're able to factor in what happens when there is no Bitcoin on exchanges.
Okay,
That's when we actually
we got to wrap it up, guys. Okay, so what I'm going to ask each of you to do
Your feelings.
is, Giovanni, first of all, just for the record, 2030, right? 2030, so 6 years from now, where are we in Bitcoin price? And just where are we in Bitcoin price? And we'll see relative to Oliver's Velez's thing. Where do you think 2030 we are in price?
You are going to come close
Yeah,
to
roughly
1 million, and probably with a bubble, smaller bubble that we see right now, we are going to get 1 million, but then we go back. So close to 1 million. Close to 1 million.
Close to 1 million. Luke, 2030, where are we?
I'm going to say a humble 3.5 billion.
3.5. Okay.
But you realize that from a scale point of view, it's the same number. That is the other people that think they don't realize. 1 and 3 is basically the same thing from a scale point of view.
So look, I think we're all three of us kind of are in the same ballpark, because I may be a little lower. I would sort of say just a little bit lower than 1 million, but I think we're all kind of within a factor of 5. And so anyways, thanks guys and Luke, thanks for jumping in and defending Oliver Velez. I think you did a great job with your arguments. Very, very convincing. And Giovanni, thanks a lot. I got some new slides. I love the thing about the exponential when you just look at it, and it's not a straight line in log space. It's a curved line, so it's not exponential. Very good. Thanks, guys. And
thank you.
We'll have another one of these at some point in the future. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I'll see you guys later. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Bye. See ya.
Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks for having me, Giovanni. Have a good day.
No problem. Thank you.
No worries. See you. Oh, I don't know how to leave. Oh, yeah, here we go. I can see the leave button. The leave button's in the top right corner. I couldn't find it for a minute.
Okay, bye.
All right, have a good day. See you.